Welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Welcome back to this week's Training Thursday, where I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is exercise. And today we're going to focus on exercise, not so much in the exercises that you need to do, the movements that you need to do to get yourself in shape, but the fact that exercise has so much more to do than simply losing weight or getting yourself in amazing shape. I love going over those topics. I love teaching about what exercise you should be doing, what workouts you should be following. But the truth is that we all need to be exercising, whether we're looking to transform our body or not. And the reason is this, that exercise has so much more to do than the outside of our body. It is literally reshaping the inside of our body as well. It's helping us to get healthier. It's helping us to balance homeostasis, to balance our immune system. But it does one other thing, and that is it actually helps to change the way that we think. So this is called the neurobiological brain connection. Neurobiological just means how our brain communicates through our neurology, our nervous system, which affects our biology. So what I want to share with you today, and the reason why I'm going over this topic, is that I had the pleasure of actually bumping into a man named Anthony, if he's listening to this podcast, in the hallway of the new office building where I work. So I work on a floor where it's essentially 3 psychologists, and it's myself. And so people see me and they ask what type of medicine I help with and all of those different things. And of course, we have our own waiting area, all of those things. But I do get to bump into people. And this person asked me directly, and they were meeting with one of the psychologists there, and they asked, actually, they had heard my name before, and so they wanted to say, am I taking on new people, et cetera, et cetera. This person was dealing with a lot of post-traumatic stress. They were dealing with overall stress in their life, probably that we all do, right? And they were also dealing with the death of a loved one in their family. And they were in a quite depressed state. And I let them know, just say, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand that, for the most part, you kind of think that you're all alone. And I do get that, because, of course, I've been there myself. I understand that. What I wanted to simply give them was the understanding that I love that you're doing some therapy right now. You're working with your therapist and your psychologist. And I gave him a copy of my book. And I wanted him to understand that we need to not just be looking at the way that we get our brains and body in shape, right? Is not just by a supplement, is not by a drug such as an antidepressant, but it has to do with a multitude of factors. And when you look at all of those factors, today we're going to focus on exercise. You can actually achieve anything that you want in life. So right now, if you're being held back in life, and there's some people that I work with, there's a couple of really tough cases that I work with, that I let them know, you have to understand is that we're not going to out-supplement our way out of this, and we're not going to anything our way out of this. We're going to literally transform your body at a foundational level. So forget about all these little extra things. Like a lot of times we talk about, should I be doing a little bit of a little bit more pygium, or how about a little bit more chromium? And I say all of those things are great, right? They're great. But what we need to do is get back to being a human at the deepest level possible. And that means this: we need to eat right, we need to sleep right, we need to work on our parasympathetic nervous system in terms of regeneration, and we need to start to move our body. So I knew I wanted to speak about this topic. And then when I met this man the other day right outside my office, it said, okay, I need to be talking about this topic, because I probably have a list of about 40 or 50 different podcast topics that I want to get to. And this wasn't the first one on my list for the upcoming Training Thursday, but I knew that, it was fortuitous that this is something I need to be speaking about. And then I listened to Dr. Andrew Weil on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I didn't get to listen to the whole thing, but I listened to a couple clips. And it was specifically on how he's talking about how dangerous Xanax is, one of the leading prescription drugs, right? They give, a lot of people are put on antipsychotics in addition to antidepressants, and that's because we know that antidepressants they simply don't work for a lot of people. They work for about a third of the population, and even when they do work, they have a shelf life, where most people don't feel any better or sometimes worse after anywhere between 12 and 18 months, up to 2 years. And the reason is simple, that our bodies begin to produce less serotonin, of that happy, feel-good neurotransmitter, and it affects the other neurotransmitters such as GABA as well as dopamine or acetylcholine. It also, when we look at this as well, is even if they do work in the short term, say you are part of the population where they do work, what happens is we get a shutting down of serotonin-based receptors. So our cells, our body, it basically closes its air, right? It closes its ears to serotonin. It starts to shut down the receptors just like our cells can shut down the receptors to glucose, to insulin, right? It can basically block insulin, can dampen the effect. It's called insulin insensitivity, right? We're not as sensitive to insulin, and we can't keep the sugar then in the cell. We can't get the sugar in the cell, so it stays in our blood. Well, that leads to what? Type 2 diabetes, one of the leading factors of death and dis-ease in this country. It's because diabetes leads to a host of other issues, such as neuralgia, such as vascular-based issues, eye-based issues, stroke, cardiovascular. It's one of the largest leaders to all of metabolic syndrome. Well, the same thing can happen with antidepressants. And I agree with Dr. Wheel, where sometimes there's a time and place for a couple weeks to maybe a couple months maximum, where someone does need medication in order for them to not do anything harmful to their body. And I understand that. I believe that as well. I believe in all forms of medicine. I believe in a truly integrative form of medicine. I believe that everyone is right in certain instances in terms of medicine, but everyone can also be wrong. So you have to know when to use it with what person. But the problem with conventional medicine is that there's no other choice besides an antidepressant, and we give them out far too frequently, and especially to children, because getting off antidepressants can be extremely challenging. You need to very slowly taper the dose. But I'm going to give you a way today that will helpfully help you if you're on antidepressants, or a friend or family members on an antidepressant, or you're feeling depressed, you're feeling low. The first thing I want you to understand is this, is that it is normal in life to go through tough patches. It is normal in life to be sad. It honestly is. It's one of the human emotions. The problem is when that sadness lasts weeks and months, that's when it becomes truly challenging. And I understand and empathize with anyone who said, I can't live like this. I need to take an antidepressant, or I need to take some type of antipsychotic or anti-anxiety or Klonopin or any other type of medication. I get that. I understand where you're coming from. What I want to do is try to help you with the best anti-inflammatory based nutrition plans by reading the Rain Barrel Effect and seeing what you need to do, of how the gut can affect the brain, of how candida and SIBO and parasites and H. pylori can all affect the brain as well. By eating a high sugar processed food diet can affect the brain. By eating a lot of grains such as gluten can affect the brain. Not going overboard. You can certainly eat your grains if you're not sensitive to them, right? But the other thing is this, and that's why I had to bring this to you today. I was doing some research. This is a while back, but I looked it back up. And it was this study done by the University of Toronto. I believe it was, well, I know that this was done a few years back, 2013 or so. But what it did was it reviewed 25 already peer-reviewed research articles on depression and exercise. And it put it together in the October 2013 issue of the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. This is obviously a well-reputed journal that conventional medicine as well as naturopathic medicine looks at. Remember, naturopathic medicine uses all the latest scientific research. Same with, again, functional medicine, all of it. And the reason we use it is because we don't deny it. We believe in it. But you have to understand is that there are, and there always will be, more mitigating factors that work in the real world that do in a research study. A research study is looking at one specific thing, and it doesn't always take into account everything that's going on in the real world. I'll give more examples of that in the future as I start to talk more about case studies as well. But today what I want to give you is, and again, you can look that up. It's just the University of Toronto, and the head of that study was George Mammen, M-A-M-M-E-N, and they reviewed essentially 25 peer-reviewed articles, 26 years worth of data, and it was written up as an overall study or review of these 25 studies done over 26 years. in the October issue of the Journal of Preventative Medicine. And there were some very clear takeaways. And it was this: if you are not using physical exercise, I'm going to give you which type in a moment, to combat issues to do with anxiety, depression, and I would say even a lot of PTSD, then you are doing yourself a disservice. And any practitioner out there who is not recommending exercise as part of their wellness program for both mind and body is, again, doing their patient or wellness client a disservice. And I don't mean that from a mean way. For sure, I do not. What I want people to do is understand that we need to use everything that involves this human body. Part of that is food, but a lot of it is movement as well. Movement changes people's lives, getting them to move. So now let's talk about what type. And I'm giving you this, again, all by the science today. So I'm going to link this study up. This is a huge, huge study it's in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. And I'm going to give you some of the highlights right now. So the beginning of the study and the research just goes to show that it's estimated that about 17% of the population will be affected by depression or at least some type of, suffer from some type of real low mood at some time in their life. And that this is a $40 billion industry. Much work is lost. Many relationships are hurt because of this. And what I wanted to do was actually give you the exercise and clinical depression part of this, because this is so unbelievable. And I mean, I can't believe that this research is not given to you, because it works so much better than the placebo, and it works so much better than the antipsychotic drugs. So I'm going to read some of this for you right now. And what it's done is it's really assessing the control group, which is just no exercise with depression, and then a group that is with exercise. And what they found was they just did a simple first study, 20 to 40 minutes of walking. That's it, just walking. 3 times per week for 6 weeks. Well, what did they find? How did that help with the overall symptoms of depression? And was it more effective than the group where they were doing nothing? So, for the group that was walking versus even just a social support group, that's where they had peer-to-peer speaking, and they had another control group that did nothing. They saw a improvement of a 2.4-fold versus a almost 1-fold for the social support versus almost nothing, 0.5 for basically the placebo of doing nothing. Not even placebo, it's just they were doing nothing. That was the baseline, right? So pretty impressive. We have the next study. This is a study using an ergometer. This is an ergometer. Basically, you're seated, and all you're doing are cranking your arms in a circle on an exercise mean. It's called exercise bike, but you're just using your arms 4 times a week, 30 minutes for 6 weeks. So what they found was that this group improved by 14.4 points over the baseline, which didn't improve basically at all, 0.5. So this is a clinically significant study. Really, really impressive. Let's go on, because I know that a lot of people aren't going to sit down and do an ergometer for the most part. So let's look at some studies that we can get some real data and takeaway from. Now, of course, you should walk. And walking alone will give you a 2.5 uptick. So again, impressive. But look at this one. This was done with resistance training and reduced depression. And this was done, let me get you the number of weeks. The weeks was 12 weeks, okay? So for 12 weeks, and this was anaerobic, working out with weights. So if you worked out with weights, and you did that for 4 training sessions a week, between 8 and 12 weeks, there was an uptick in improvement of 11.5% versus a baseline of 4.6%, okay? And let's see if we have one more here for you as well, because I wanted to actually look at, this was a big thing with my research. What are the differences if you did aerobic-based jogging or running, that's what typically these look at, or biking, versus anaerobic, right? Versus the weight training. So this is what I wanted to look at. This was my research into this. Here's what I found. Let me pull up this study right here for you. And again, I'm going to link all of this up. Okay, so there were basically 3 groups set up for the study. One group that did not participate in physical activity, another group that participated in weight training, and the third group that participated in running. Okay, so these were the 3 groups. Weight training, running, or they were just control group of baseline of what they were doing previously. The follow-ups were done at 1 week, 7 week, and 12 weeks for this study. It was an 8-week group. So what they did was they looked at it after the 7th week, right? So they have that much data. And then they did a follow-up to see if the results still continued to stick. Here's what they found. The running group improved by 11.1 points. The weight training group by 13.6. And the control group that didn't change anything by 0.8. This was a clinically significant study. Now, it was neck and neck between running and weight training, but you actually saw a little bit of an uptick in the weight training. Interesting to me to look at that, of how you maybe pushed your body a little bit more from the nervous or the neurological based system as well. However, either form of exercise, absolutely fantastic. And what they found as well is after the 4 weeks, the improvement still was there. Meaning these people stopped exercising. And even afterwards, after the 8 weeks where they participated in all of that exercise, typically 4 training sessions for 8 weeks, they still kept the improvement. Additionally, I just want to give you one more additional one, is they actually put exercise against cognitive behavioral therapy. And you know that I'm a huge advocate of cognitive behavioral therapy. Spoke about it on last Friday's podcast. Well, what they found was that both showed an improvement. 1.9% improvement, or I shouldn't say percent, 1.9-fold improvement for running, 1.6 for the cognitive behavioral therapy. Impressive, right? They both gave an improvement, but exercise even outperformed. Now, does that mean that you should not speak with a therapist? That you can't get benefit from doing something such as cognitive behavioral therapy? Absolutely not. But why not do both? So that's what I'm talking about today. A truly integrative approach to healthcare does not forbid you from doing acupuncture just because you do chiropractic. And it doesn't forbid you from doing chiropractic if you're working with a naturopathic doctor. And it doesn't say that you can't do Reiki or massage or manual lymphatic drainage or work with a personal trainer or even see your PCP for their advice as well. It does not negate any of that. Because if you're a practitioner and you care most about the person that is in your care, right, in your practice, and that's why I love using the term client as well. Only licensed medical practitioners are allowed to use the word patient. But regardless of that, the word client, to me, is a really beautiful term that most people overlook. And that's because client, if you go back to its etiology or its origin, you can actually look at it as means someone who's in the care of, right? So if you have a client, if you're a personal trainer or you're a holistic practitioner or naturopathic doctor that's not licensed, that doesn't want to go through the licensure because they want to practice in their own way, well, you're now working with clients and they're in your care. And if someone's in your care, it is your job not to make them to fit into one small little form of medicine or box of medicine. You want to say, my goal is to get this person well in both body and mind. I need to do everything I can. And sometimes that means offering the assistance of another, right? So every once in a while, I'm going to say, we've been doing this. We know that there are certain things going on with your posture and tightness and stiffness. I want you to go see a friend of mine and a colleague who's a chiropractor. And they don't do a lot of adjustment. They do a lot of active release work. They do a lot of other great types of modality. And yes, they will adjust you if needed. I want them to give you a spinal assessment. I could do it for you, but this is their expertise. It's what they specialize in. I want you to check for biomechanical deviations of the spine. I want to see if there's any nerves being impinged upon. I want you to go check that out. Let's just rule that out. And then I might want to see if you get benefit from doing this, right? So you can do that. You can assemble your team, right? Your all-star, your dream team of how you can help people in multiple ways. And so that's really what I'm teaching in the Integrative Health Practitioner certification as well, is assembling a team of personal trainers, massage therapists, the integrative health practitioner, a chiropractor, all sorts of people that you can form your own network with. And you become the go-to person for basically the care of your client. And that's truly what a life coach is as well. That's what I call lifestyle medicine. You're helping someone get well from the inside out in many different factors. So what do we take from this study, though? Here's what we do. We look at these studies. Again, this is a meta-analysis of many, many different studies. The Toronto one, the PubMed one that I'm speaking about right now. And we know this. What can we take away from this? We know that exercise is more powerful than pharmaceutical drugs. We know it's even more powerful than speaking with your therapist. But again, that does not mean that you should not speak with a therapist. And it doesn't mean that that negates that. It does not. It just means the power of your own body and this neurobiological benefit trumps everything. So if you're struggling right now to improve your mood, I understand where you're coming from. And I feel the pain that you're suffering from right now. I understand that. It's one of the reasons why I went to the gym even at my worst. And believe me, at my worst, when I had true Addison's disease and myalgic encephalomyelitis and all sorts of immune dysfunction, I should not have been training like I was training. But I'll tell you what, if I didn't train how I was training at that point, I wouldn't have made it through. I honestly would not have, because the exercise was my outlet. Being able to train with my workout partner in college, his name was Jesse, one of my best friends. He was there to meet with me every day after we got out of class, around 4 o'clock or so. And we went to the gym and we trained. And no matter how bad I was feeling, I got a little bit of a boost when I was exercising. And then after, we would joke around in the gym, and that was a lot of fun for me. And then we would go to dinner in the cafe of my college cafe. We'd have dinner together. We would chat. Those are great memories for me. They really are. And so I owe a lot to him, but I also owe a lot to the gym. That's why the gym, to me, holds one of the most special places in my heart. It's an outlet. It is a way. Exercise is your way to be able to boost your body and mind. And part of it comes from this. Part of it comes from going to the gym even when you don't want to. That's the truth. It's that a lot of us don't want to exercise. We have to shower afterwards. It takes away from our day. It's this, it's that. It's hard. We don't really want to move our body. But when we do it and we make it through, not only do we get the boost of endorphins, sure, we get that. There's no doubt about that. But what are you really doing? Well, you're conquering your inner mind, that inner critic that says, don't do it. It's easier just to go home. It's easier just to sit on the couch. It's easier just to sleep in a little bit more. The problem is when we do that, we're losing battles every day. We're losing the battle of our own mind. So that's why not only do I believe that it helps clinically with the endorphins and with the neurotransmitters, there's a real biological effect, right? There's a real chemical effect, right? So that gets into neurochemistry of how our own biological chemicals affect our chemistry, right? They are our chemistry. And that affects our neurology, which is our nervous system, which again sends feedback to our brain of how we're doing, how we're feeling. And there's a little bit more. So if you're interested in this topic, there's a book called The Athlete's Way. It's just one book, but it's an easy book to get through. It's called The Athlete's Way by Christopher Berglund. And I will link this up today at stephencabral.com/1049. I believe that's today's episode, 1049. I will link up the PubMed study there, and I'll link up this book. And again, it's a small book, it's a short book, and it's not focused on the type of exercise you really need to be doing, but more so why you need to be doing it, and the inspiration that you can take from athletes out there who do this every day, a lot of times when they don't even want to. So I want you to look at that. And the next thing I want you to do is this. What can you take away from this study? It's that you have to understand is that we get sometimes overwhelmed with all of the possibilities of exercise, what we could be doing, just like we get overwhelmed with all the possibilities of what we could be eating for our diet. But the first thing that I want you to do for diet is just start with whole food nutrition. Start with making a smoothie in the morning. Start with predominantly being a plant-based diet. 80% of your plate. Make it look like plants, right? Make it look like things you see in nature. Sure that some of that could be root vegetables. Some of it can be cooked. You can experiment with some raw food, but try predominantly plant-based. Now with exercise, what do we need to do? We need to get that body moving. And I spoke about it on a previous podcast, and I'm going to be talking about it on an upcoming Training Thursday as well, so stay tuned, of the exercise that you should be doing for this new year. But here's the bottom line. Before I get into the specifics of it, you need to not worry so much about what you are doing in terms of the actual exercise movement modality, but rather, are you getting your body moving 4 days per week for 30 minutes? That's what I have to ask you. Because if you're not doing that right now, why we get into the nitty-gritty? Why does it matter how many push-ups you do for the day if you're not getting your body moving 4 days per week? I've always gone back to 4 days per week. Why did I talk about this in the rain barrel effect? Why do I talk about this so much? It's because if it's 3 days per week, we get 7 days in a week, right? Well, 3 days is what? Well, it's less than half. 4 days is what? More than half the days. But here's the interesting thing when you do 4 days per week. You will never go more than 1 day with it being an off day, right? So if you do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you pick a weekend day just to do a fun exercise, like I do, right? If it's during the summertime and I'm in Maine most weekends during the summer, what am I doing? I'm outside with battling ropes, a chin-up bar, a steel mace, a kettlebell. Now, you might not be using all these crazy forms of exercise equipment, but why am I using those crazy forms of exercise equipment? Because it's fun. I'm simply doing a fun exercise. Might I get a little bit better results from doing some barbell deadlifts and barbell squats and standard chest presses and pull downs? Sure, I might. But will that keep me excited to do that workout on a weekend? No. And plus, I can't get all that equipment outside. I like being out in the sun doing that. And I want to be able to show my 2 young girls that exercise is an important part of everyone's life. I can show everyone that, right? So what I do is I get out there not to show off, but to move my body and also try to be a role model for my girls. And they get out there and they're exercising as well. They're hanging from my, from the rings that I use for my pull-up bar. They're twisting, they're lifting their legs up in the air, and they're having fun as well. So it's fun. But my Monday, Wednesday, Friday, well, that's going to be a little bit more formal in terms of exercise, right? And that will be maybe one day that's a heavier day, one day that's a little bit more higher rep, and then another day that might be in the pool, and it might be doing other types of exercises, more like cross-training. But what do you need to do? Regardless of what you choose to do, and I will be talking about that on a future show again coming up, of what to plan for the new year, is I need you to plan your calendar. That's what I need you to do. I need you to make the commitment to yourself that you're going to find 3 days during the week, right? And if you can't, if you can give me Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday and Sunday, I'll take that. I will take that, right? Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. If the weekends are your time, then great. I know Mondays are busy. Tuesdays are better days for me as well. Same with Thursdays. I try to get in my Tuesday, Thursdays, right? But what I want you to do is make a commitment. 4 days per week. And I don't want you to pen an hour down. I don't need that. What I need is 30 minutes. Can you give me 30 minutes? Can you give yourself 30 minutes? I'll tell you right now, if not for your body, do it for your brain. And don't say, I'm going to have to do this for the rest of my life. Focus. Give me 6 to 8 weeks. If you can do that, you won't want to stop. And especially if you keep a little journal. Because after about 2 to 3 weeks of exercise, the light will go on and you will see the difference that it does in your mood. I'm telling you right now, we put people through a 21-day, right? 21-day detox, 21-day this, 21-day that. Give me 21 days. If you can do that, it can be transformative. If you can exercise and move your body for 30 minutes 4 times a week, you will not regret it. And you will honestly look back and say, why did I not do this sooner? That's it for today. I'm going to keep it at that. I'm going to link up all the different links at stephencabral.com/1049. And then I'll follow up with another podcast to make sure that you start the new year off right with your exercise program. Thank you so much for tuning into another show. And as always, if this show is helpful, please do feel free to pass along to anyone else it could serve. Take care, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for just tuning into today's Cabral Concept. And I'm extra excited today. And that is because based on your feedback, based on everyone at CabralSupportGroup.com, our entire online community, your request has been heard, and we created the very first chocolate functional medicine Dr. Cabral Detox. So beginning the end of December, we're taking pre-sale right now for our initial first batch. We are offering the Dr. Cabral Detox that we've been using for years now, instead of just in our vanilla flavor, in our chocolate flavor, which people have been loving over the past couple of months with the Daily Nutritional Support Shake. So if you've been enjoying the chocolate Daily Nutritional Support Shake, now you can get that same shake as part of the Dr. Cabral Detox. That comes in the 7, 14, or 21-day detox. This is our initial first run. I hope you take an advantage of this, but more importantly, whether you take the chocolate or you do the vanilla, whatever works for you, is that you join us on our New Year's detox. I couldn't be more excited about this. We have it launching January 7th. We are taking all orders now. The Dr. Cabral Detox is literally sold out, but we're taking pre-sale orders now, and those will be shipping out on December 28th in time for our January 7th community detox. I hope you're a part of it. I can't recommend it enough. It is one of the absolute best ways to start your year. So for the chocolate Dr. Cabral Detox, its inauguration, its debut, head on over to equilibriumnutrition.com to be a part of this initial debut. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.